that you have control over, and that's all you need to control. Simply because the external world is a projection, a reflection of your inner self. So what we need to take control over is our reaction. Like I touched upon it yesterday, majority of our problems are because of our negative reaction to smaller problems in life. Problems in life is relatively insignificant in comparison to the blessings that we have. But when you react to the problems negatively, then the problems have a tendency to multiply, to expand itself. So therefore, you create your own problems and difficulties, not the world. For example, here is a young executive, very dynamic. He's got a very important meeting on a Monday morning, 8 o'clock. He's quite excited about this meeting because it's a huge business contract. And he's been waiting for this meeting for a long time. And on that Monday morning, he's all ready, dressed up, power dress, suited, booted, business dress. And as he's sitting and having his breakfast with his family, usually his practice is that on the way to work, he drops his child at school. So as they're sitting and having breakfast, the child inadvertently knocked the coffee cup, and the coffee falls on the table, and from the table the coffee spilled on his dress, in his power dress, in his suit, Armani suit. How would you react if you happen to be that executive? How would you react? Angry. Anger is an understatement. You're furious. You're so furious. That's what happened to him. He was so upset. He was so angry. He screamed at his child. He's panting. And he doesn't have enough time, so he got up and quickly ran to his room and he changed his dress, put on another suit, put this one for cleaning, and came down. In the meantime, because the father was furious with the child was upset. The child is sad. And he nibbled his cereal and his breakfast. And since the child was so upset and angry, the child didn't want to have breakfast. And the father had to spend extra 10-15 minutes to pacify the child and have his breakfast. Finally, the child also had something, but the child was upset. And he left home 15 minutes late. And because he left 15 minutes late, he started driving fast on the road, speeding. And as he was speeding, the cops stopped him. And he's panicking because he's already late. It's a very important meeting, etc., etc. And he tried to explain to him, please, I got an important meeting and blah, blah, all that. And he even tried the other way, tried to slip in 100 rand. South African police, very honest. I don't know why you're laughing. You refused to accept. Another 15 minutes when he got a ticket. Was speeding. Half an hour late. And his heart is panting, faster, very angry, very upset. Finally, he reached the school, he dropped the child at school, and the child couldn't even say goodbye to the father because both are upset with each other. And eventually he reached the office, everybody is waiting in the boardroom, and he went and sat on his side, very excited. And he opened the briefcase. He forgot the file that he worked on the previous day. And you can imagine the problem thereafter, a series of consequences further. The meeting didn't go well and he's nearly lost the business, etc. Now, analyze. Who has actually created the problem? Did the child cause the problem? Did the coffee falling his business suit cause the problem? Did the wife who kept the tea or coffee on the edge of the table cause the problem? Who has or what has actually caused the problem? His reaction to an experience that was fait accompli. That is done already. The coffee fell on the table and fell on his dress. Can he do anything about it? He cannot. He simply has to accept it. But he did not have the understanding, like you mentioned. He reacted negatively, violently at the child. As a result, the child was upset and sad, and the child wouldn't have breakfast. It took extra 15 minutes. That is where it started. A series of negative repercussions thereafter. That is why when people say, when trouble comes in battalion, it comes in battalion because of our negative reaction. So what Vedanta advocates you is to take control of your thought, take responsibility of your reaction to the external world. That's all you have control over. Not the external world. You do not have control over other people's behavior, but you do have a control over your reaction. And that reaction that is creating unhappiness. As I told you, it is not the other people's behavior that hurts you, it is your reaction to the other people's behavior. The world do offer difficulties and challenges. The law that I mentioned to you yesterday, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. It is your creation. You add suffering to the experiences in your life because of your negative reaction. So therefore, you have a choice of control over your happiness and peace. And that peace and happiness that we're talking about is within. You cannot blame the external world. Once it so happened, Buddha, Lord Buddha, he was on a pilgrimage with a group of his disciples. As he was traveling, he came to a village, and when he reached the village, for some reason, an insane man started hurling abuses at him, started calling him names and all sorts of names. Very angry. And Buddha stood there and just looked at him. Absolutely silent, just looked at him. No reaction whatsoever. And the man continued, going on and on and on, hurling abuses. After 20 minutes of abuses, when the man stopped his nonsense, Buddha slowly turned his face and walked away. In the evening, they reached their ashrama, their kutir, the ashram, and they were having satsang. So one of his disciples asked this question, "Sir, why did you not tell us? We are about a dozen of us here. If only you had given one hint, we would have finished that man. Why did you keep quiet? Why didn't you tell us? We are not happy with the situation. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you indicate to us? One hint was enough. We would have finished him, but without your consent, we couldn't do anything." Buddha said, it is his choice to give whatever he wants. It is my choice to take whatever I want. He gave whatever he wants. Whatever he gave, I left it right there and came. You took it, you deal with it, he said. Now, how many of us you find keep taking whatever other people give, what they don't want? And when you take what other people give, what they don't want, and you take it and you say, other person caused suffering. It is you accepted it. Remember, the law is that other people's behavior cannot affect you if you do not react to it. Other people's behavior, other people's emotion cannot affect you if you do not react to it. And sometimes when you react, it is your reaction sometimes creates the relationship problems. And the reaction can be sometimes negative. Reaction can be sometimes very vicious, powerful negative emotions like jealousy, anger, arrogance, vanity, pride, a whole host of negative emotion. In fact, if you read not only our Hindu scriptures, some of the Western literatures like Charles Dickens and William Shakespeare and Milton, etc., they all wrote about the same principle, same philosophy. Sometimes the reaction can be very negative in the form of jealousy. Among the entire panorama of negative emotions, jealousy is one of the most vicious, most destructive. That's why William Shakespeare warns humanity in his play Othello. He says, "Beware of jealousy. Beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster, mocks the prey that it feeds on." Beware of jealousy. Jealousy is a monster with green eyes. It mocks the prey that it is feeding on, meaning jealousy entertains the prey that is feeding on. What he's trying to say is that you must have come across in your own life. For example, when a cat catches a mouse, what does the cat do? It doesn't kill the mouse. It plays with it, correct? The cat plays with the mouse, and the mouse also gets carried away, not realizing the intention of the cat. The mouse gets carried away, the mouse starts playing with the cat. And when it comes to the climax of the game, when the cat had enough fun, it just crushes its head and eats it. The cat entertains the prey before killing it. That's exactly what jealousy does to us. When you have a jealousy, when you find somebody is achieving more successful, somebody has achieved more success than you, and that success is achieved by bypassing your opportunity, that can give you jealousy. And that jealousy can give you a kind of entertainment. How does jealousy entertain you? The entertainment part of jealousy comes when you wish suffering for the other person, your competitor, your arch rival. Supposing you hear something really bad about your rival, how do you feel? Something nasty happened to your rival, your arch rival. How do you feel? Sorry? It deserved it. It deserved it. You really fucking deserve that feeling. That is the entertainment. That is the negative, when I say entertainment, negative entertainment, not realizing how it devastates you. It's like a cat entertaining the rat, not realizing that the cat is going to kill it. Jealousy does to us. A negative reaction. In fact, the whole of Othello is dedicated to convey to the humanity how deadly the jealousy is. To give you the backdrop of the play. I'm sure most of you have studied Othello. Othello, the Moor of Venice, is the title of the play. Othello was a great general in the army. Powerful warrior. Othello was a very close acquaintance of a family, Brabantio. Brabantio was a white family, Othello the Moor, the black. Very close acquaintance. Othello used to go to Brabantio's family every now and then. And Brabantio had a charming young daughter, pretty young daughter, called Desdemona. And Othello used to, in the conversation, he used to talk about how his courageous experience, his valorous experience in the battlefield, how he used to fight. And Desdemona used to listen to the story with rapt attention, as if she's watching a thriller movie or something. And it went on for some time. Eventually, Desdemona developed an admiration to Othello. She fell in love with Othello. And Othello eventually reciprocated. And they were doing it very secretly because they know that the father will not agree with the relationship because there was a racial difference as well. Othello the Moor, the Venice, black. And they were secretly courting. And one night, rather, Desdemona eloped with Othello. Next day morning when father got up, no trace of Desdemona. And he looked around, Desdemona is not there. And he sent a search party and he discovered Desdemona eloped with Othello. And the father was furious. Incidentally, Desdemona is characterized as the most virtuous female character in English literature. Shakespeare painted Desdemona's character as the most, an embodiment of virtue. And the father knew that. But when father learned that she eloped with Othello, he was furious. He just couldn't digest, he just couldn't believe it. And he climbs on top of his roof and shouts on top of his voice and says, "Hence, fathers, trust not your daughters from what you see them at." Hence, fathers, trust not your daughters from what you see them at. It's a warning to every parents. Don't take your teenage children for granted. Because they are emotionally, they are very vulnerable. Their emotional state is very, very fragile. So what you see is not what you see them doing. Therefore it says, beware. But anyway, father had no choice to accept it. Desdemona and Othello got married and the life went on. They were happy until there came a jerk and a halt in their life. In Othello's army, there was a vacancy for a captain's post. And Iago, by the way, is the villain of the piece. Iago has been aspiring to get the promotion, the vacancy. And Othello, the senior, he did not promote Iago. He brought in a rank outsider. His name was Cassio. And Cassio had no experience in the army, but Iago worked in the army for many years. And he was aspiring to that position, captain's position. He was a soldier. But he brought in Cassio. And Iago was bitter. He just couldn't digest it because he couldn't get the promotion. And he goes and tells his friend Rodrigo, this fellow brought Cassio as the captain, and that too, a mathematician. Mathematician in the army? What can a mathematician do? That was his argument. Now again, Shakespeare is conveying a message there. What does it mean? He's bringing mathematicians to rule a battalion. Mathematicians, strategy. Leadership is all about strategy. There's a saying, a battle is won in the tent, not in the battlefield. It is a strategy that you make in the tent that actually win the war, not the brute force in the battlefield. But Iago was so bitter, he couldn't endure the bitterness and jealousy. He decided to take revenge against Othello because Othello didn't give him promotion. So what it is, Desdemona, Othello's wife, was an acquaintance of Cassio. So Cassio used to come every now and then, spend time with the father, with Desdemona and Othello, etc. It used to, very innocent friendship. Iago used this opportunity and Iago cooked up a story that there is an illicit relationship going on between Cassio and Desdemona, while Othello had the total trust and faith in Desdemona, the husband. And Iago, driven by this jealousy, made the suggestion, I like not that Cassio visiting Desdemona slowly poisoned Othello's mind. Although initially he refuted the idea, but Othello began to suspect his wife. And suspicion became stronger because Iago began to work on Othello's mind. And the suspicion became stronger and stronger, and jealousy became more and more. Iago is already jealous because he couldn't get the promotion. Now that jealousy infected Othello. Othello became very jealous, and he's still not sure what's happening. But Iago has no confirmation. In order to confirm and give him a proof, what Iago did is, Iago's wife, Emilia, was Desdemona's maid, home assistant. And Iago told Emilia and said, listen, there is this particular handkerchief that Desdemona has got. I want that handkerchief. And now this handkerchief had a lot of sentimental value. That is, Othello, when his mother was on the deathbed, as he was about to die, she gave this handkerchief to Othello and said, I won't live to see your wife. As and when you get married, this is my token of affection to your wife. Please preserve it and give it to your wife. And Othello preserved it. And when he got married to Desdemona, he gave that handkerchief to Desdemona as his mother's token of affection. And Iago knew this. And Iago told Emilia to steal the handkerchief. And Emilia very innocently took the handkerchief and gave it to Iago. And Iago put that handkerchief in Cassio's drawer. And when I told Othello, listen, I told you there is something is happening. Do you remember the handkerchief that you gave to Desdemona? She gave the handkerchief to Cassio. And I've seen Cassio wiping his beard with that. Do you want to see? Come with me. But he played difficult. He said, I rather not show you because you'll be very angry, you'll be very upset, so I won't show you. But when the more he denied, the more eager he was. No, I want to see. He said, come with me. Took him to Cassio's drawer and showed him the handkerchief. And yes, now he's got the proof. Othello went back to his house. And as he reached the house, he called for Desdemona. Desdemona! She came rushing. Yes, my lord. First time, Desdemona hearing Othello shouting like this. She came rushing. Yes, my lord. What happened? Incidentally, Desdemona and Othello, the relationship was not just love. It was a sense of reverence. Yes, my lord. Desdemona always addressed Othello as my lord, my lord. Yes, my lord. What happened? That is reverence. You know, why relationships don't sustain very often is because we simply love, and love is very superficial. Reverence is what Hinduism expounds when it comes to relationship between wife and husband. The husband reveres his wife, the wife reveres the husband. Now what is reverence? Reverence is a combination of three fundamental emotions: love, trust, and respect. When there is a combination of trust, respect, and love, it is called reverence. That is what Desdemona had towards Othello. And Desdemona came rushing. Yes, my lord, what happened? Desdemona, get me that handkerchief. I've got a headache, I want to tie it around my head. Bring that handkerchief. Desdemona rushed in the room and she brought a handkerchief and gave it to Othello and looked at it, and he flung it back at her and said, not this handkerchief, get me that handkerchief. My mother gave it to me and gave it to you. Get me that. Desdemona went back and looked at it. She came and said, my lord, I can't find it. I don't know where that is. You gave that handkerchief to Cassio? And he called her that name. You. And when Desdemona heard that, she was devastated. She called her that name. And she was devastated. Anyway, the quibble and quarrel, the night ended. Next day morning, as usual, Othello went to his office, his chores. In the meantime, Iago the villain was working on Othello's mind. He was becoming more and more bitter, more and more furious, and he just couldn't digest that his wife had endless relationship while she was so pure and noble and gentle. And Othello comes home. And that particular day, he came home unusually late. In the meantime, Desdemona fell off to sleep. And Othello walks into the chamber, and he sees his dear wife lying down, fast asleep. And he makes his famous soliloquy. It is the cause, my soul. Let me not name it to you or change stars, it is the cause. Her skin is so smooth as monumental alabaster, yet she must die. She's so beautiful. Look at her skin, so pretty, so beautiful, like a monumental alabaster, yet she must die, lest she will betray more men. She can't afford to live. It is the cause, it is the cause. Let me not name it to you or chase stars. I don't want to blame the stars for her destiny. It is her infidelity. Put out this light and this light. If I put out this light, I know what Promethean power rekindle this light. But if I put out this light, that is if I kill her, I don't know how to rekindle her life, yet she must die. And as he was soliloquizing, Desdemona wakes up. Desdemona wakes up and says, yes, my lord, you have come. Yes, Desdemona, I have come. Desdemona, did you offer your prayer? Yes, my lord, I offered my prayer before I sleep. No, Desdemona, did you offer your last prayer? My lord, what are you talking about, the last prayer? Desdemona, you don't deserve to live. You have been unfaithful to the wedlock. My lord, what are you talking? I have no idea what you're talking about. You gave the handkerchief to Cassio, and I've seen, and my good friend Iago showed it to me, and I've seen Cassio wiping his beard. I've seen the handkerchief. And then Desdemona said, my lord, why didn't you call the man and ask him where he got it from? And when Othello heard that, why didn't you call Cassio, bring him and ask him where he got it from? Othello thought, she's still talking about Cassio because of her affection. And that is when Othello jumped at her throat and began to strangle her. Othello began to strangle her, and she was struggling and screaming and shouting. And as the shuffle was going on in the room, the Emilia just outside the chamber heard the scream inside. And Emilia came rushing, banging the door, but the door was bolted. And she knew there was something, some emergency inside. And but just Othello was, holding Desdemona in his clutches. And eventually strangling her, releases. Desdemona falls down, bleeding profusely. And he goes and opens the door, and Emilia rushes in. Emilia rushes in and sees the tragedy. Desdemona lying on the floor, on the verge of death. And Emilia asks, who has done this deed, my lady? Who has done this deed to you? Desdemona's last word was, I myself. I myself commend me unto my kind lord. I did this upon myself. I brought it upon myself. Give my respect to my kind lord. Who? Othello, who strangled her. That final statement proves her virtue. Even after Othello strangled her, she refused to think negatively about her husband until the last breath. She maintained that purity and devotion, and Desdemona dies. And now Emilia turns to Othello. Why did you do this? Why did you do this atrocious thing? And then Othello said, she has been unfaithful. And my good friend Iago, your husband, proved to me that she gave the handkerchief to Cassio. And now Emilia remembered what? She's the one who picked it up and gave innocently. And she was about to reveal the truth, how Iago asked her to steal it, and she innocently took it and gave it. And Iago is witnessing the whole thing, hiding in the background. And as she was about to confess how she stole the handkerchief, Iago comes rushing and stabs Emilia. Emilia dies. And now Othello knew that there is some foul play here. Iago stabs his wife and ran away. And Othello asked the soldiers to chase him and catch him. And the soldiers caught Iago and brought him inside. And now Othello asked him, what's the story? And he had to repeat everything like a parrot. How he was so bitter with jealousy because he couldn't get the promotion, and he cooked up a story just to take revenge. And now Othello knew who was the actual villain. He was so upset, so angry, he pulls out a dagger and stabs Iago. Desdemona dies, Emilia dies, Iago dies, and now Othello turns to his dear wife, lying on the ground, pleading profusely. He was so bitter, so regretful. He picked up his wife's body, hugs her, and he just couldn't bear the pain that he murdered brutally his pure, innocent, devoted wife. Just couldn't endure the pain. He pulls out a dagger from his own, waist and stabs himself, commits suicide. A heap of dead body in a matter of few minutes. I don't think it can ever happen, and it's never happened. It's a story, as you know. But why I'm giving you a long, winding story, not just to pep your emotions up, simply the power of a small reaction and how it multiplies and catapults into a catastrophe. And yet you have the choice to take control over your own reaction and change the repercussions, change the consequences later. Othello, Moor of Venice. Our reactions that happens to you is not innocent. You can't take it lightly. The type of reactions and response that you maintain in your life now determines your future. That is the law of suffering, the law of reaction. Under the canopy of the law of karma, another very important law that you got to understand is the law of reciprocity. According to the law of reciprocity is that what you give the world will come back to you exponentially. What you wish for the other people, you get it. If you wish blessings for the other people, if you continuously offload good wishes for the other people, it comes back to you. You get the same thing. What you give to the world, it comes back. You sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. And the repercussions are not tit for tat, it is not one-to-one. It comes back to you exponentially. 1 into 10, 10 into 100, 100 into 1,000. The law of reciprocity. You sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. If you don't understand philosophy, not everything we can understand and gain conviction with philosophy. To reason, sometimes you need to take statistics also. Find out the lives of people who are successful, prosperous and peaceful. Are those people always wish well for the other people? They are always generous. Charitable nature. When you give, the problem is you can't give. Because the more you give, the more it comes back to you. You may wonder, how does it work? I'm not convinced. How is that when you give, it comes back to you? When you give, what happens is the universe will make you a receptacle. Universe will make you a filler. Elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Upadrashta Anumanta Bhakta Bhokta Maheshwara. 5 significant words. When you are extremely selfish, you are only concerned about your welfare, your enjoyment, maximum your family, wife and children. If you stretch it more, parents also included. If you are selfish, what happens is the Supreme Being is simply Upadrashta, just a witness. Let you do what you want. But then when you turn spiritual, the moment you turn introvert, you begin to think charitably, it becomes Anumanta, permitter. It permits you to do good things. Upadrashta Anumanta. When you continue to do charitable activity, he becomes, the universe makes you Bharta, meaning fill up. Your coffers get filled. The more you give, the more it comes back. Upadrashta Anumanta. And when you continue to live a life of charity, then what follows is Bhokta, enjoyer. You cannot enjoy anything in the world without wishing other people's welfare. Without contributing, without becoming charitable, you cannot enjoy Bhokta. And when you continue to live a life of charity, you become Maheshwara, Supreme Lord, meaning you gain power, you rise above the world. Maheshwara, Supreme Lord, you gain power. Doesn't mean that you become the president of the country, that's not what I mean. You feel right on top of the world. No petty problems and difficulties and all the trifling problems don't affect you. You rise above the world, and you can look at the other people going through a lot of emotional torture on petty problems. You rise above Maheshwara. Upadrashta, Anubanta, Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwara. That's what you become. When you live a life of charity, the universe makes you a receptacle for the benevolence. Because you're giving, the universe makes use of you to serve the community in whichever way possible. Now when we say giving, a lot of people think, okay, we need to start giving the money. Yes, you may still give the money. That's why America is so prosperous. Because who do they trust? You must have seen the dollar. When you read the dollar, what do you see the slogan there? In God we trust. In God we trust. They don't depend upon the minister or the finance minister or whatever. In God we trust. I don't know what's on the currency here. The finance minister or the president. In God we trust. So when you invest, you cannot make a better investment than in God. The best investment is charity because it comes back exponentially. That's a law. Take statistics. You analyze people who are really, really prosperous. The world changes are charitable. I'm talking about the Bill Gates and Warren Buffett of the world. Always think benevolence of the other people, law of reciprocity. And see, some of you may say, well, I don't have money to give, or some of you may say, I don't have knowledge to give. Every one of us have enough to give. You don't have, there may be an opportunity, there may not be an opportunity to give, but at least the greatest gift that you can give is wishing the welfare of the other people. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. Sarva bhuta. Every being. Hita, welfare. You revel in the welfare of all beings. That is charity. You genuinely wish welfare of, it doesn't cost you money, it doesn't need education, it doesn't need special qualification. That is the law of reciprocity. The more you give, the more it comes back. Again, we are continuing from what we discussed yesterday, the free will, how we are using the free will. There are various laws under the purview of the free will. The other law that you got to understand is the law of changing the future. What is future? Future is continuity of the past modified in the present produces the future. So if you want to change the future, you cannot rewind your time back and correct it. The past is fait accompli, isn't it? You cannot change a bad beginning. But by taking the responsibility and starting now positively, you can have a successful ending. You cannot change the bad beginning that you had. You cannot rewind the time and correct it. But changing now, taking the responsibility, you can have a successful ending. That is the law of changing the future. But what we do, instead of taking the responsibility now, many people have the tendency to keep regretting of the past failure, one of the deadly diseases of the human mind. Our mind has a tendency to constantly revel in the bad experiences that you went through. I wish, I could have. 3 words. I could have, I would have, I should have. Could have, would have, should have must go out of your mind. That is regretful thought. Of course, you learn from it. You don't have to forget the past. Now and then you may have to retrospect. You remember the past only to the extent you can learn from it. Just as when you want to drive ahead on the freeway, every now and then you keep looking at the rear view mirror. to make sure that your path ahead is clear. You look at the rear view mirror not because you want to go back, only because you want to move ahead happily. Similarly, in our life also, now and then, you will retrospect what happened in the past, what did I do? You remember very clinically. Do not allow that memories of the past failures disturb your present concentration. And how do you do that? That is why we have this incredible instrument within you called buddhi, intellect. The intellect has to be exercised through study and reflection of Vedanta, through study and reflection of the scriptures. You develop a strong intellect. When the intellect is strong enough, the moment your mind slips into the regrets of the past, it is able to push aside that bad thought and focus upon the present action. The law of change, regretting. Otherwise, what happens is all the time we live in the past. In fact, if you have a regretful mind, anything you do, you'll regret. You do something good, you'll regret. You do something bad, then also you'll regret. Regretful nature, it has nothing to do with whether you made the right decision or wrong decision. Even if you have made the right decision, sometimes you can still regret. Because see, there are people who sold a car. Oh, I should not have sold it. I should have waited for 2 more weeks. I've got a better price. If they did not sell the car, the very same person will say, I should have sold it that time. It has nothing to do with the right decision. Regretting is a negative tendency of the mind. You know, there was the sadhu, a sannyasi. He was traveling with a group of his disciples. As he was traveling, he came to the riverbed. The master told his disciple, he wanted to test them, you know. Children, do you see a lot of sand around in the riverbed? All of you can carry a little bit of sand in your hand and hold it in your fist. I'll tell you what to do. That's all you need to do. But you have a choice. You don't have to. It's not my command. It's your choice. Some of them grabbed a little bit of sand in their hand while the other people did not. And they continued their journey. They traveled a couple of hours. They held on to the sand. And after they covered a little bit of distance, the master asked the students, now open your fist and look at the sand. And they looked at the sand, and the sand, they found the sand was pure gold powder. It's no more sand. When they found it was gold powder, those people who did not carry the sand regret why they didn't carry it. But those people who carried the sand also regretted why they didn't carry more. That is the regretful tendency of the mind, negative reaction. Jealousy, there are numerous negative emotions. As I told you, emotions are highly contagious, highly infectious. A businessman comes home in the evening highly strung, highly stressed, highly depressed. He doesn't realize how he's actually infecting his family members with the stress. You are not able to lock your problems in your office when you lock your office. You bring your official problems at home and you infect the family members. Emotions are very infectious, very contagious. I would like to call them ETD, emotionally transmitted diseases. That's what we are going through. Every one of us are already infected. Negative reaction, it causes influence upon the other people's lives also. The law of consequence. The law of consequence states that you are free to choose an action, but you do not have the freedom to choose the consequences. You're free to choose what you want, but you do not have a choice over the consequences. When you lift one end of the stick, the other end of the stick comes along with it. The law of consequence. We don't realize it. But what happens is, we all like to make a choice, but we don't see the consequences. When you are making a choice, you are choosing a consequence, remember. When you are making a decision, when you are making a choice, you are choosing a consequence. When you want to continuously eat only tasty food, you are choosing ill health. When you continue to smoke uncontrollably, you are choosing lung cancer. When you indulge in alcohol or substance, or any substance for that matter, you are actually choosing ill health. Every choice that you make, you are actually choosing a consequences. Now you look at the reverse of it. If you are going through pain and sorrow and suffering, it is a consequences of the choices and decisions that you made in the past. Khalil Gibran had this to say: we choose our joys and sorrows long before we actually experience them. We choose our joys and sorrows long before we actually experience them. So the experiences of pain and pleasure that you're going through now, you have already chosen in the past. The law of choice. Consequences. Every choice that you make, you're choosing a consequence. And the consequences you do not have control over. You have to accept it. But when you exercise the right choice, remember, you got to endure certain pain. The study of the scriptures, investing time in spiritual activity, gives you tremendous mental stamina to endure the pain. Today, the younger generation particularly, they lack the mental stamina to endure the pain. That is why they succumb into instant gratification, instant pleasure. When you endure the pain, the happiness multiplies. Analyze the lives of some of the successful people and happy people. You know, there's a statement that we all make which says, behind every successful man, there is a woman. Behind every successful man, there is a woman. Is that what you said? You said it. But Vedanta says it's slightly different. Vedanta says, behind every successful man, there is a pain. What pain? What pain? I didn't say that. Talking about pain, there are two types of pains that we go through. Only two types of pain. The two types of pains are the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. The pain of discipline is painful in the beginning. The pain of regret is painful later, sometimes all your lifetime. Pain of discipline, you are the master. The pain of regret, you are a victim, you are a slave. You do not have choice of it. But when you make a conscious, deliberate decision to go through certain pain, what happens is, you do not suffer. Although you may be going through the pain, you don't suffer. We go back to the law that we discussed. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Sometimes we go through pain, but you do not suffer. Suffering and pain are two different things. It's not the same. Suffering is a reaction to pain, and that reaction is created by yourself. You go to a gym on a hot, humid, sunny day, summer, and you go to the gym and you do a good 90 minutes of intense workout. And having done workout, you take a shower and go and sit inside the sauna. The temperature inside the sauna is about 55, 60 degrees, very hot. You sit there in the sauna for 20 minutes and thoroughly sweat your body, and you come out after the exercise. And you take a shower and you come out of the gym. How do you feel? Nice, refreshed. When you come out of the gym, the temperature on a hot, humid day in Durban summer is about 35 degrees. You complain, oh, it's too sultry, too sticky, very hot, very humid. When you paid money and sat inside the sauna at 60-degree temperature, you did not complain, did you? But when you come out of the gym, there is free sauna available outside, and you complain it's too hot, too terrible. Thing. How come you seem to be suffering more in 35-degree than 60-degree? Why? Because in that 60-degree temperature, you made a conscious choice to go through it. In life, when your intellect governs a conscious choice and decision, it gives you mental stamina to endure. You do not suffer. The law of choice, the law of consequence, you got to endure it. So, there is an ability, there is a skill that you can develop so that you go through pain but you don't suffer. There are many saints and sages and did it. Why do you think when Jesus was crucified on the cross, the prophet was nailed all of his body, bleeding profusely, and he said this famous statement, dripping with forgiveness. He said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Because he learned the technique of, although going through pain, but he did not suffer. You don't have to be a Christ to do that. You know, one of the great saints was Ramana Maharshi. He had a car bundle on his back, and his devotees had to take him to the hospital, and the doctor was giving him anesthesia. So what are you doing? Anesthesia. He said, don't worry, carry on with the operation. The ability to mentally, I'm not saying you should try all that, please. All that I'm trying to say is that although you may go through pain, you do not suffer. That is spiritual development. So the reaction. Now, that is free will. Various laws under the canopy of free will. Now, the question arises, what is the difference between, or what is the relationship between free will and destiny? Free will is your ability to choose the type of thought, type of reaction that you want. Destiny is the consequences of the choices and decisions that you made in the past. Although what happens to you is your destiny, you have a choice over the reaction. A spider has the freedom to create the web where and the way it likes it. But having created the web, the spider is confined to move within the web. Before creating the web, it is called the freedom. But having created, it has to move within the web only. Before the railway tracks are laid, you have the choice where to lay the railway track. But having laid down the railway track, the train has to move only on the track, doesn't have a choice. A silkworm has the freedom to create its own cocoon. So having created, the silkworm is confined in the cocoon. That is what we have created, a cocoon for ourselves. So happened yesterday, I was speaking to one of my organizers in one of the cities outside the country, and some contact was saying, I'm doing this lecture. They asked me, whom are you lecturing? I said, I'm lecturing to a group of prisoners, and the person happened to be from South Africa. And he asked, you mean, are you lecturing in Westfield prison? I said, no, I'm lecturing in Amshlanga. Oh, I didn't know there was a prison. I said, there is no prison, but there are many prisoners. I said, what do you mean? All of us are prisoners of our own past karma. Prisoners are not in the prisons, in the jail. We are all imprisoned in our own karma, our own past activities. So you have the free will to take the responsibility and change the future. That is called free will. Prison house. Animals don't have the problem. Like I explained to you yesterday, animals don't have the problem of choice. But their life is limited in the sense, their choices, they have no choice first of all. And they can only lead in a particular direction. A giraffe cannot think like a tiger or an elephant or a pig. A tiger cannot think like a giraffe or an elephant. Whereas human being has the freedom to think anything that you want. And when you think in a particular way, you are webbing your own cookie.